Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now May 20th of 2025, and given that Meghan Markle is still doing everything in her power to remain in the spotlight, remain in the limelight as an actress, quote unquote, and that is working to no avail. We know that studio by studio is beginning to either blacklist her, ban her, or never even consider her to take part in any form of negotiations or pitch meetings or anything like that to get a chance at a major cameo role or even a small role at that for a movie or television series moving onwards. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about Meghan Markle is that yes, we do know that there's a lot of drama going on as we speak over at Netflix, both internally and publicly, and it's really not working well in her favor at all. If anything, she's only making matters worse for herself. Now, one thing about Meghan Markle is that yes, we do know that with Love Meghan Season 2, in reality, that's nothing more than Season 1 Part 2. That's what it really is. Let's call it what it is. But that is already beginning to have multiple setbacks as we speak, and it is driving Meghan Markle crazy. Now, there's a lot of things going on between herself, CEO Greg Peters, the many executives over at Netflix and producers, trying to salvage the show, trying to really just get through this show as fast as possible and call it a day and end her contract by this September without a renewal. Well, there's a lot of other things going on beyond that that's beginning to actually throw Meghan Markle into a major fit, and let's get into the overall specifics about all of that. Now, one thing to really consider here is that yes, we do know that Netflix is trying their absolute best to essentially move away from Meghan Markle in a very strategic way, alright? But it's not going to really work well because eventually this thing will be released regardless. Now, with Meghan Markle desperately attempting to keep her career alive as an actress in Hollywood, already serious setbacks are happening for With Love Meghan Season 2. Now, one major development going on now involves more to do with Meghan Markle and how she recently had yet another major breakdown over at Netflix after Greg Peters and the many executives and producers took part in a test screening for With Love Meghan Season 2. Now, Meghan reportedly was involved in an emergency meeting with Netflix after the most recent test screening failed miserably across the board, where the screeners labeled Season 2 as soulless and far worse than Season 1. Now, this second test screening that took place for Season 2 that failed miserably forced Meghan Markle and those higher up at Netflix to take part in a sudden meeting where they decided to make decisions on which footage they wanted to delete from the entire show, essentially. Already the board of directors that once sided with Meghan Markle as ride or die supporters are forcing Meghan Markle and have they actually informed her that they will be cutting 5 very important cameos that Meghan Markle specifically, get this, handpicked to appear in the show. To begin with, the series already has over 30 cameos to begin with, and Meghan Markle went on a major tirade, essentially, with Netflix CEO Greg Peters, where there was an explosive argument that took place after Peters agreed with the board of directors to delete the 5 cameos after the failed test screening. Now, the emotional response from Meghan Markle was reportedly so intense that she was in tears after the board, as she saw it, betrayed her, and they decided to act quickly by cutting footage. And though reshoots are still a go for June, Netflix as of now is already slowly but surely beginning to turn on Meghan Markle with every failure that they experience for Season 2. Now, Markle is already heavily demanding the Netflix executives to increase funds for reshoots to actually throw Netflix into a specific strategy, so that Netflix, of course, already declined against Meghan Markle, especially after they decided to insert cost cutbacks for the show by a whopping $10 million alone for the reshoots, and another $8 million worth of cutbacks for the marketing campaign, just for starters that are now cut from the funding. And guys, about that marketing campaign, alright, that $8 million cut, that's pretty drastic for a show like this. Now, that means you're going to have far less commercials, far less TV spots, far less advertising for With Love Meghan Season 2, and she's already beginning to deeply panic about this because she knows it, Netflix knows it, that this will end up in the long run really not gaining a lot of traction due to, not really properly promoting the show, right? And I think what it really boils down to as well is that Netflix seemingly is trying to hide this series. That's what it sounds like to me. That's why they're doing all these cost cutbacks. It's not just to save money, it's also to hide the show. And we've seen this happen with Disney. In fact, we just saw it happen recently with Disney with the Ironheart trailer. That was supposed to have a large, wide marketing campaign for at least 1 year, and they just decided to drop one trailer 1 month, give or take, before the release of that series. So continuing on, something that startled Meghan Markle to the point where she was reportedly frightened about how the show will gain any exposure now that the marketing campaign is going to be drastically downsized by Greg Peters and the board of directors. In addition to all of this, Meghan has been begging for Netflix to reconsider their plans of renewing her contract. However, Netflix did not listen to her, and they are still reportedly sticking to their plans to ditch Markle by the beginning of the fall of this year. Now guys, before I move on about that, let me just say one thing about this. The fact that she is begging Netflix, you know, the higher-ups, we're talking about the executives, Greg Peters, the board, she is begging them to renew her contract. She wants another contract deal with them. And they don't. They don't want to have anything to do with Meghan Markle ever again. They don't want to deal with her ever again after this entire fiasco that took place and how it really gained a lot of eyes. Negatively speaking, of course. We know that this movie was mocked across social media and mainstream media simultaneously. And that is a major blow to Netflix, alright? They actually got a lot of heat for that actual series with Love Meghan. The fact that they are lying to the audience, calling Season 1 Part 2 Season 2 is ridiculous. They're making it as if this show got picked up, they're making it as if this show was renewed, and this was all an idea by Meghan Markle because yes, believe it or not, she does hold some creative power over the series, and this was basically her idea, and she actually spawned that overall concept. She wanted the idea of just calling it Season 2, just to actually give the illusion that her show was renewed to make it sound more successful. Now, in conclusion here, alright, Markle is said to be very persistent with the board, and Greg Peters doing everything that she can to convince them to renew her contract before it expires this September. To make matters worse for Markle right now is that she is also losing a ton of trust with Amazon after new drama started behind the scenes. And about that, by the way, we'll have a lot more to talk about that in the days to come. But there have been a lot of negotiations between Amazon and Meghan Markle on creating a reality TV show that would be inspired by other reality TV shows in nature, and that's really not working out too well because there's a lot of setbacks with that project. Again, we'll have a lot more to talk about that, but what's interesting here is the fact that Netflix seemingly is putting their foot down, and Meghan Markle is not having it. She is not accepting that overall movement by Netflix, and she's having a very hard time essentially, you know, accepting that Netflix, even some of the board members that once supported her, like I said before, they were ride or die supporters, are now beginning to break. They are beginning to turn their back against her, and they want nothing to do with Meghan Markle and her nonsense anymore. And that's a very big sign that this show is going to be far worse than the first season, or the first part, if you will. Overall, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about the whole Meghan Markle situation over at Netflix. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.